Good evening. Yes, I am back. Don't act too upset here. Special thanks to Jeff Loomis for filling in for me last week. Great job. I'm Jared. This is Jake. We are Chin Straps and Baseball Caps. Determination, grit, perseverance, and the will to succeed. All that and more coming up on our show this week. Okay, so as Jared mentioned, this week did you mention that we're talking about the Boston Marathon?
I didn't, no. But we're going to talk about the Boston Marathon.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Boston Marathon. This was happened on Monday. This was a very inspiring story to me. I think part of the thing is with running, for some reason, that really hits close to home. And it really feels like it brings up some good emotions because almost everybody can do it. But I wanted to talk about Desiree Linden, who became the first American woman to win the Boston Marathon since 1985.
Crazy.
The story goes that she has been in a couple Olympics and had some good finishes in the Boston Marathon before. But this is her first time winning it, of course, since she probably wasn't around running it in 1985. But so she ran the Boston Marathon. If I was listening to an interview with her where she was talking about this, and she mentioned just briefly that she almost didn't run. So I thought I kind of want to get the information on this. So I started looking for it to find more information on why she almost didn't run. So her story is that she has been around for a little while running these races, and she was getting ready for it, and she just really couldn't ever get into a rhythm. She'd have a couple of good days here and there, but for the most part, her rhythm was just not there. Then the situation, like the conditions of the Boston Marathon were really cold and really rainy, and so she almost dropped out because she didn't want to cause herself any long-term damage by running this race, and so she nearly dropped out. She kind of goes into a little bit of detail that the reason why she didn't drop out was because she was there. I might as well run it. The other part is she had a friend and a teammate that was running it with her. And she's like, hey, if you need me to block the wind for you, I'll block the wind for you. If you need me to help you set the pace, I'll do that. Kind of sacrificing herself to help her teammate win because she just didn't feel like she was going to be feeling it that day. And then here she is. She wins the race. And it's a phenomenal story to me. I think one of the purposes that I've had in this podcast is using sports to tell a narrative about life and how life can, how different things can impact us in life. And here you have a runner that gets inside her own head about, I'm just not feeling it. I don't think I can do it. Wouldn't it be just easier to quit? Why run it? And then she's just there, so she's like, I'm here, I might as well go. And she just said, I'll just take it 1 mile at a time. That was kind of her saying. But I was thinking about my own life. The reason why this story stuck out to me so much is because how many times in my life that just going through the daily grind of things, that I can honestly say I wake up in the morning and I think, oh man, do I want to do this again? Well, I'm here. I might as well give it a shot. And that's kind of the only way I've talked my way through it. So I think the emotions that I've tried to capture in this podcast and hope to kind of share with people about sports is that these situations are real. They get into she has a situation where she has a roadblock in her own mind come up, and she decides to persevere through it and go 1 mile at a time. And then here she is, celebrated as the winner of the Boston Marathon. I thought it was tremendous, a tremendous story.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about 2 weeks ago, brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
1 mile at a time. You used an analogy the last time I was here. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. I mean, this is a perfect example of someone who really didn't want to do it. I mean, she wasn't feeling it. She didn't think she was going to be her best, and she just said, I'm going to take it 1 mile at a time. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to get up, and we'll see what happens. And then she ends up winning the thing. I mean, I can't even imagine. First off, I hate to run. I've mentioned this before. It is the worst thing ever. I mean, I would use the rain as an excuse. I'd use the sunshine as an excuse. But
It's too sunny out.
Yeah, it's too sunny. I'm not doing it today.
It's too hot.
It's too hot.
Too cold.
They do it at nighttime. It's too dark. No, anything's an excuse for me when it comes to running. But she goes and she does it, and she ends up winning this thing. First American in how long?
Since 1985.
1985.
In the women's division.
Sure. I mean, what an inspiration to all of us that, you know, there are those times where we think we cannot go any further. We just can't push any further. And she does it. 1 mile at a time.
Well, what I appreciated from her is that she was so forthcoming with how she felt going into it. And, you know, I think the situation, like, each one of these marathons have different circumstances, different conditions. Runners, the leaders will pace at a different pace, usually. The thing they didn't mention is, actually, I saw it mentioned briefly, is she had the slowest time since 1978. That was the slowest women's time for a winner. Mm-hmm. And the thing is it's not even worth really mentioning, and I even hesitated to bring it up in this because it's not even worth mentioning because the circumstances are different. Right. The storm, the weather, everything else. The thing that is important to come out of this is the triumph that she felt, and coming in and attacking kind of her own roadblocks that she put in front of herself to go forward to do this. And the idea of 1 mile at a time. I cannot express enough how many days I've faced waking up in the morning when I've been caught in some crap hole, you know, horrible situation, and I don't know if I can do this. Right. You know, well, I'm up. I might as well go after it again today. And so to hear her say that was just, I don't know, it resonated with me.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought up that this is the slowest win. Was it ever?
Since 1978.
Okay. Because, you know what, that also brings forth another issue, I suppose, that she's going to have to face. So here's someone who, like we said, doesn't feel good, doesn't really want to do this, doesn't think she can give it her all. She ends up winning it. Well, critics are going to say, yeah, you won it, but X, Y, and Z, right? So there's another challenge, another roadblock that she's going to have to go through to be able to say, yeah, I did win it, and it was the slowest time since 1978, but that doesn't matter. This is what I did. This is what you can take from it, because there's always going to be critics in our life. No matter what we're doing, if we're succeeding, if we're failing, it doesn't matter. There will always be critics in our life.
And I think one of the reasons why I even highlighted that is that it hasn't been mentioned, because the people that are talking about it right now usually know something about running. Mm-hmm. And know about how that race was going. You know, I've watched the Tour de France for many, many years. And the one thing that I rarely ever hear is the finish time compared to previous finish times. Mm. And they change the course and they do some other things, but they rarely talk about the speed comparisons or anything like that. All of that stuff they don't talk about because the conditions are different on a daily basis. So yeah, she might find, you know, I heard one little blurb on that. And I had to go back and look up the date because I couldn't remember. But I heard one little blurb on that. But the people that know are celebrating just her accomplishment.
Right.
The other thing that happened was with her and her teammates, they had 7 Americans finish in the top 10. Wow. That was the most in quite some time. So it was just like...
That's crazy.
The circumstances that she faced, you know, just highlighting what she was going through beforehand and not feeling well. So I'll have my Uncle Rico moment, Jared.
Sure. Yeah, please do.
I ran a marathon back in 2013, and I really wasn't ready for it. It was a very hard grind to get ready for it, and I think that's why running has resonated with me in this regard, these stories that come out of it. But I remember going up to it and training, and I'd been training for months, and then got out to run one morning, and I just couldn't do it. And I didn't know what was going on because I physically couldn't do it. It wasn't a mental block. And I told my wife, I said, it feels like I'm wearing cement boots. It's just awkward. I don't know what's going on. I can't get in a rhythm. It feels weird. So Jeff was working for a doctor, and he said, why don't you go in and get checked out? It turned out I'd torn the muscle tissue around my calves. And so I wanted to still run this race. And the doctor said, well, we can give you a shot of cortisone. You'll have to ride a bike for a while to keep your endurance up, and then it will heal and you should be able to run it. Okay, and that it ended up working, so I was able to run it. But I remember coming up, I think it was mile 18, it was the St. George Marathon, and you come up this hill, and then you look down and there's this long, long stretch of downhill running. And when you get to that point running, long downhill running hurts like heck. I mean, it's about as bad as it gets. My feet were just slapping the pavement. Every step was excruciatingly painful. And I just didn't know what I could do, but it was kind of that same mindset of one step at a time. I was listening to music, one song at a time, just keep going. And it was really tough. I certainly wasn't running at all near this level, like maybe twice as fast or twice as slow. Yeah. But it was still just kind of that build-up of getting through these challenges to be able to run this race, and then having to take it one step at a time. It was extremely difficult.
Side note, I was the jerk when you were out running around the neighborhood that was driving my car honking and being like, ha, sucker. I think about that, and I think, because I came and watched you run that marathon, and I remember that downhill, and the entire time I'm watching that, as we would go to each different checkpoint and try and see where you were, I'm thinking, man, I would have literally just laid on my side and rolled. I would have just rolled down the hill. I'm like, forget this, I'm rolling. I couldn't have done it. These people that are doing this, I mean, this idea of one step at a time in these marathons and running are inspirations to me, because it is literally something I could not do. And I look up to you, to Desiree, for even just completing it. But her story is unbelievable. And I think that this is the best part about sports, right? I don't like running, but I can still find something of value in her story for myself.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about sports. That's what's great about these athletes that go out day after day. Look, it doesn't matter if it's running, football, soccer, baseball, basketball, or curling. It doesn't matter. These people go out day after day and they face adversity, and for the most part, they overcome it. Mm-hmm. Even if they fail, that's part of the adversity, right? And even if they succeed, that's part of the adversity. It all goes into it, and we can all find something of value from their stories.
Well, and I think that's the thing why I think running resonates with so many people, because how many people have it on their bucket list? I mean, there are people, of course, that hate running, like yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of it lately. I need to get back into it, but have it on their bucket list to run a race, a 5K, a 10K, half marathon, whatever it is. And they can kind of resonate with these types of situations. But the thing is everybody's been through physically daunting challenges. And right. That's what's highlighted in this story, is that she had these physically daunting challenges. Plus the conditions were anything less than perfect. Far from perfect, I should say. Where she's facing these horrible storms, and she just kind of, battens down the hatches and goes forward and does it anyway, and ends up winning the thing. And I think we can resonate with that. It's why I will continue to highlight that mile by mile. I mean, It's that feeling. It kept hitting me of how many times I've woken up thinking, how am I going to face today? Just step by step.
I think of that in my own life. So every week, Jake will send me texts about the things that he wants to talk about in the podcast. And I'll go through it, and I'll kind of try and think of things from my own life and look at the articles that he sent me and try to apply it. And this week, just the articles that he sent me, I was able to apply it to a time in my life. This is a absolutely hilarious story, actually. When I was in 7th grade, I wanted to play football. All my friends were playing football, so I went down to the local sports store where you sign up for your Pee-wee football or whatever. I was playing for my junior high school, 7th grade. And all my friends, they've already signed up and they're all on the lightweight team. There were 3 weights of teams, right? Light, middle, and heavy. which seems ridiculous to me because you've got the lightweight, which is just a bunch of receivers running around.
It is
the middleweight, which is all the people that are just like, do I want to be skinny? Do I want to be fat? What do I want to do in my life?
Too skinny to be lineman, too fat to be receiver.
Right. And then you got the heavyweight, which is just a team of a bunch of linemen. I mean, your quarterback's a lineman, your center's a lineman, your receiver's a lineman, everyone's a lineman. So all my friends got put on the lightweight team, and I got put on middleweight. And I'm thinking, crap. Well, okay. So I start going to practice and stuff, and I hated it. Mind you, I hated football. I don't know why I ever played football. And I think that stems from losing every single game I ever played of Madden on N64 to this guy.
Boo-hoo, you need a tissue.
Look. Onside kick every single time.
I was good at it. What can I say?
I was perfect, though. I never did anything wrong ever in my life to mess with you or anything.
Yeah, sure. I like Jeff better. He takes the blame for our problems.
Yeah, I saw that. So anyway, I start playing, and it's awful. My coach's name was Coach Payne. Coach Payne, if you're listening, I didn't like you very much. But I was the kid that literally sat on the sideline, and this is where it gets really funny and pathetic. I sat on the sideline. I wanted my mom and dad to think that I was doing something, so I'd pull grass, and I'd rub it on my pads. I had grass stains. I mean, good night. I did not like it. And of course, I am in 7th grade. I think that my parents don't know anything, except when I hear the internet going, I know my mom's looking at my grades, and then I'm just hiding under the bed.
Back in the old dial-up days.
Yeah, the old dial-up days. But I thought I knew better, and so I had this plan of how to get out of it. So there were a few days where I didn't go to football practice. And they didn't really make me, but in my mind I'm thinking, well, they have no idea. Oh, they knew. So a few days later, my mom sits me down and she says, Dallins don't quit. She says, I don't care if you ever play again. You don't ever have to play again, but you will not quit, period. And I cried.
You have to last throughout the season.
Yeah, you have to last throughout the season. I cried. I didn't want to do it, but I went, and I continued to play. I played throughout the rest of the season, and I was done, and I had achieved it, and I was so happy it was over. Well, the next summer, I read in the newspaper, hey, sign up for football. Yes, we had newspapers when I was growing up. And
gosh, you're old.
I went to my dad. I said, Dad, I want to sign up for football. He looked at me like I was the biggest idiot alive. He's just like, do you remember last year? He said, that's fine if you want to sign up, but I don't want to hear any complaining, and you will go to every practice. And
see, I had the opposite reaction. I thought you were an idiot because I played for 1 year of football. And I got hit from behind one time, and I was like, nope.
I'm done. Well,
I'm out.
Your body was smart. Your body was like, hey, that hurts. I don't want to do this anymore.
It did hurt.
Oh, my body wasn't smart. So I go and I sign up for football again. And I had a fun year. It was so much fun. Our coaches were fun. The players were fun. I was on middleweight again. Still didn't know what I was doing. Skinny or fat, didn't know. But I ended up starting that year, which was a lot of fun. I had grown up a little bit. And so 9th grade came along and I played again and it was awful again. It was just like bad, good, bad. And then I was like, do I want to do this again? And I did. I continued to play throughout the rest of high school. And my sophomore and senior year made it all worth it. Sophomore through senior year, rather. Made those 2 years with Coach Payne and Coach Teo well worth it. You know, I persevered through that, and I'm not trying to boast of myself, but I mean, I wasn't very good up until I made it into high school, and then I still wasn't all that great, but I was better. I started, you know, and that was my lesson of perseverance. You know, don't give up. Just because something's hard, just because something royally sucks in the moment, it doesn't mean that it's going to suck forever.
All right, Uncle Rico, you just brought up the second part that I wanted to talk about, because you're talking about the triumph of, did you win state? Did you win the championship?
No. Nope.
Did you get a college scholarship? Did you,
Nope.
You know, but you still felt that level of triumph and success. And one of the other stories that came out of the Boston Marathon this week was a cancer survivor. Her name is Mary Schurtenlieb. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Forgive us if we don't know how to say your name.
So she crossed the Boston Marathon finish line at 12:18 a.m. the next morning, 13 hours after she had started the race. She was at mile 15, and her lips were purple. She is a leukemia survivor. She got to the tent, the medical tent. She was shivering with purple lips. She thought she had hypothermia, so she called her boyfriend. He said, "Why don't you, come back, get showered, warm up, and let's go finish the race together." So he did. They went back to the start, or the point where she had stopped, and they went and completed the race. Here's, if you look on her story, the one I'm looking at is on ESPN. There she is wearing her bib, running in the dark, and they're recording her, getting up to the finish line. And here she is, a cancer survivor. She's gone through hell and back, and she takes triumph in the fact that she is able to complete a race, that she had to leave early because of a fear of hypothermia. But there's triumph in the story of Desiree, and then there's triumph in the story of Mary, where she doesn't win anything. I don't know what the race organizers did, but my guess is she didn't get her medal. She didn't cross the finish line officially. She didn't do any of that, but she was determined to finish the race, and she finished the race. And so she was able to kind of check that off of her list and gain that triumph there. So your story talking about your kind of progression through football reminded me of her story and what she went through to get there.
Yeah.
I think I said her boyfriend. It's her husband.
Is it her husband? I wondered. It's interesting because you think about it. So Desiree wins it, right? But Mary ran the same course. She ran her race. They were different races. It was the same all-around race, but it was their own personal race, their own personal struggle. And Mary ran the same course.
Why I love these stories out of running, because everybody's life is different.
Right.
Everybody's path is different, but your triumphs can be similar.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Both of them are highlighted in ESPN and other news organizations as a triumph. Mary, like you said, probably didn't get her medal, probably didn't get anything out of it other than her own self-satisfaction of finishing the race. But she is as highlighted as Desiree is, from what I've read. Because they're two separate stories. Same course, two different races.
Well, she was also able to raise $33,000 for cancer research by running that race.
Really?
I mean, there was other aspects of the race that she was able to triumph in. And it wasn't just about completing the race or winning the race. It's definitely not about winning the race. I mean, a cancer survivor to go through what she went through and then was able to complete the race. It wasn't about winning the race. It was about completing the race. And those are the types of stories. So you just hit the nail on the head. What I'm trying to describe is these things that we go through in life, everybody goes through different things. And it might just be that you wake up in the morning, and it might just be that I'm here, so I'll give it a shot. But it also might be I'm cold, I've got to stop, I got to take a break, I'm going to come back to it.
Right.
And here we have an example of Mary doing that. And she's highlighted on ESPN, and it is a great story. It's a great story to highlight.
And every single one of these, no matter where we're at in our life, no matter if we think we're winning, whether we think we're losing, whatever it is, we can gain something of value, like I said before, from each one of these stories. From Desiree, from Mary, we can take something out of that and say, okay, here's one who said, I'm going to take it mile by mile. Here's one who said, I'm going to get back out there and finish the race. One won the race, and one lost the race, essentially. Probably she was one of the last, if not the last person to cross the finish line. And yet they both have something to offer us in our struggles day to day.
Yeah. There's another one too that I wanted to highlight. It was and these last names are killing me. A woman named Caitlin Keeley, who her boyfriend Matt Weatherby, she pushed him. She wasn't able to get into the Boston Marathon, so she was able to get friends and family, and even had a police escort to run the course, the Boston Marathon course, a week in advance. What happened was her boyfriend was playing basketball. He had a really freak accident. He tripped and ran headfirst into a wall, and he's paralyzed from the shoulders down. She agreed 2 years ago to... Did she agree 2 years ago? She agreed at some point that they would run the race together. The difficult part was she was going to have to push him in a wheelchair. And so she did. They weren't able to sign up for the race, like I said, but she was able to push him on the course. They got a police escort. They were cheered by family and friends and other onlookers. It took her 5 hours and 28 minutes, and she highlights the difficult of pushing her boyfriend up these hills and how hard that was for her physically. But you have a determination of a woman that's promised something to her boyfriend that he physically can't do himself. And so she takes him on that route and does it for him and pushes him through the whole course. I mean, I think it's another situation where a bad circumstance puts a massive challenge in front of these people's lives, and they're able to find a good way to address it by taking on a goal that they came up together that was physically daunting for her. And these people are celebrated. It's, again, another story of triumph. She doesn't get a medal. She doesn't get an official time on the Boston Marathon. She wasn't able to enjoy the race day and the circumstances of that, the people cheering you on, and different things like that. She had a police escort, family and friends cheering her on. It was a story of triumph in a totally different way, but she was able to accomplish her goal and set an example for humanity about, coming up to these challenges and how do you attack them? What do you do about them? What do you do about the fact that your boyfriend's paralyzed?
Right.
You find something to do together that will help you achieve accomplishment together, and you go out and do it, and she showed the world that she was able to do it.
Well, and she fulfilled the promise that she made that they would run the marathon together. And I think that was the driving force for her. And this one, when I opened this, after you text me this, I opened this and watched the video associated with it in the USA Today, and it just warmed my heart. I can't even imagine, one, the strength that it must take for her to live in a situation where, and I want to choose my words carefully here, her boyfriend is paralyzed from the shoulders down. And
it's challenging.
She is remaining with them. That's a lifelong marathon right there in of itself, right? Mm-hmm. And so she is remaining with him to do, but not just that, then she fulfills the promise to run the marathon together. She doesn't qualify, and so she does it a week before. And like you said, she has a police escort, and it even says in the article that it wasn't just family and friends that ended up there cheering and supporting. There were strangers too.
Right.
And I don't know much about, I've only been to Boston like once or twice ever, but the people from Boston that I've ever met are just some of the most kind, caring people ever, and will cheer you on as a stranger.
Unless you're a Yankees fan.
Unless you're a Yankees fan, which fortunately I am. But
did you say fortunately you are?
Unfortunately, especially this year. But here they are. I mean, you've got friends, family, strangers, all cheering them on as she pushes her paralyzed boyfriend on this course. It's amazing to me. This is what sports is all about. This is what an athletic journey is all about. Right here.
Yeah. I think finding those different challenges and coming up with it. And I think I wanted to highlight the last one. Now this is
my favorite.
This will get you a little misty-eyed. If you haven't had the chance to look at it, you need to go to YouTube and look at Team Hoyt. Just YouTube that, and there's a lot of videos that go with it. So the story is, this is a military man that had a son that was born with severe cerebral palsy. Mm-hmm. The doctors suggested to his dad, and to his mom that they institutionalize him. He said, no, he's going to have a normal life. So you see kind of home videos of him taking his son in and out of the pool, doing these different things. His son became a big Boston Bruins fan. They were Boston natives. big sports fan. Well, I believe it was one of the Boston Brewers players that had a charity event for cancer. And he asked his dad, can we run that? Dad's okay, agreed to it. It started off a more than 30-year range of these races that they were running. They ran over 30 Boston marathons, over 1,000 races in total, I believe, including Ironmans. You want to talk about getting misty-eyed? Watch the video of the dad picking up his son after the swimming portion, where his son is attached to him on his back by a raft. So his dad is swimming with a raft attached to him, and he swims across the lake or the river, whatever the body of water that they're in. You see him jump out of the water, pick his son up, and then I believe he throws him in I think he puts him on a bike.
Yeah, I think it is a bike.
In the front of a bike, I'm sure a specially made bike. And he does the biking portion, and then he picks him up again and puts him in a wheelchair, a running wheelchair, and he runs him to the thing. And so the son talks about his first Boston Marathon and how when they finished, he got the blanket that all the runners got, and people were cheering for him. And
he was part of it.
Yeah, he was a part of it.
He was an athlete.
Son went on, he graduated high school, he graduated college with this disability, and he talks about that he's lived a very full life. They're able to go around and give speeches. What was supposed to be their last Boston Marathon happened during the bombing. And they were, beyond mile 20, and his dad comments that, the police, there's a lot more police presence than I remember. And so they found out what was going on, and it was just horrible to him. So they agreed, we're going to run one more. So they ran the year after. Boston Marathon organizers honored these two men with a statue of the dad pushing the son in his wheelchair on the race course. And it's, if you watch the videos, it's like they highlight. He didn't set any records. They didn't run any events. They didn't do anything like that. But it's a triumph of fatherly love, pure fatherly love, to provide something for his son, facing enormous challenges and giving him the best life that he can possibly give him. And the son comments, I've had a very fulfilling life. People think that, I don't have a fulfilling life. I have a very fulfilling life. Graduated college, graduated high school, graduated college, and then he's gone on to compete in all these races with his dad. And his dad had to retire because his body wasn't holding up. But they still run, I believe they still run short distance races together. And they have this foundation that they started, and their motto is, yes, you can. And if it's like I'm saying, you're going to want to, if you're embarrassed by crying, make sure you got some onions around. Start cutting some onions. Gets a little misty in there, but you talk about inspirational stories and what they did, and just having that determination and that motto of, yes, you can, and an unwillingness to give up despite enormous challenges. It's, again, another reason why I love the stories from sports and why it's meaningful to me and why I want to share that with people and hope that, we can be the hands that help lift them up, or at least direct them to the stories that will help lift them up.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one, I'm telling you, Jake's right. Just be prepared to get a little misty-eyed. Dick and Rick Hoyt. Like Jake said, this is a perfect example of pure fatherly love. He didn't do it for notoriety. He didn't do it for any other reason than he wanted to show his son that you can be normal. Even in the face of your disabilities, you can be normal. You can live a normal, fulfilling life. And then they end up accepting the ESPY, the Jimmy V Award. Mm-hmm. President Obama talked about them. He was
during the bombing.
During the bombing, his speech after the bombing, they were like the main focus of perseverance for Boston. Those two.
And if you know that story, the way that Boston rallied around each other.
Yeah.
The Red Sox, that's an event every year. They do the Boston Marathon in the morning, the Red Sox playing in the afternoon, and David Poppy giving a really inspirational speech that even the FCC allowed an F word or two to slip through, saying it was meaningful and right to allow it to go. And it's a tremendously inspirational and hopeful story.
Well, and it just goes to show you that in the face of trials, tribulations, heartache, disability, whatever it is, there are ways to persevere. There is a way to be determined and to push forward. I mean, if anything else, our country has exemplified this so many times over. You know, I think after 9/11, I think the way our country came together, it didn't matter your political belief, your religious belief, didn't matter your gender, nothing mattered. You were an American. And that's, even interestingly enough, you were a Yankees fan as well, at that time. But
you did rally around New York, and you rallied around Pennsylvania, and you rallied around Washington,
right.
D.C., and you
I
rallied
told
around
you,
Americans because everybody was impacted by that.
And I'm a Yankees fan. After the Boston bombing, I was a Boston fan. For sure. You know, and that's, again, that's what sports does.
Yeah. It's a tremendous story. There's some tremendous stories out there, and I think that's, you know, the amount of inspiration that I've received in my life from these types of stories, and recalling them when I've run into moments of struggle, and kind of, you know, addressing a day that didn't look to be fun on paper, addressing a situation that looked really insurmountable, whatever it might be, of recalling these stories and looking at it and having this determination to, you know, put your nose to the grindstone and get through it, and follow the example of all of these people. I mean, these 4 stories of these 4 athletes and what they were able to do, and the people around them that they were able to carry or whatever. It's just tremendous.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for these stories. I'm grateful for the chance that I have to talk to you about these, and hear your insight on it, and to understand some of these a little bit better, because you're right, they are inspirational for sure. That's all the time we have for this week. Until next week, keep running, keep pushing through those walls, keep being determined. Good night, everybody.